Henry III was born on October 1, 1207, in Winchester, England. He was the eldest son of King John and his queen consort, Isabella of Angoulême. Henry had two younger brothers, Richard and John, but both died young. Following the death of his father in 1216, Henry became king at the age of 9. His coronation was delayed until 1220 due to political instability in England at the time. This was due to the First Barons' War. During his minority rule, England was ruled by a regency council, which included his mother, Isabella, as well as influential barons such as William Marshal and Hubert de Burgh. Henry was crowned king at Westminster Abbey on October 28, 1220. He was just 13 years old at the time, making him one of the youngest monarchs in English history. As a young king, Henry faced many challenges, including threats from rebellious barons who resented the power of the royal court. The barons demanded greater rights and freedoms, and they frequently clashed with the king over issues such as taxation and the administration of justice. Henry's reign was marked by political turmoil, including a long-running conflict with Simon de Montfort, who led a rebellion against the king in the 1260s. De Montfort was a powerful baron who sought to limit the power of the monarchy and establish a more democratic form of government. In 1264, Henry was defeated and captured by de Montfort's forces at the Battle of Lewes. He was held captive for several months before being rescued by his son, Prince Edward, who led a successful campaign against de Montfort's forces in the Battle of Evesham. Henry's son Edward, who later became known as Edward I, played a key role in the politics of the kingdom and helped to stabilize his father's reign. Edward was known for his military prowess and his strong leadership skills. Henry was a devout Catholic and was known for his patronage of the Church. He founded several religious orders, including the Franciscans and the Dominicans, and he was a generous benefactor of religious institutions throughout the kingdom. He was also a prolific builder, commissioning many new churches and castles throughout his reign. Henry was married to Eleanor of Provence, a French noblewoman, in 1236. The couple had 5 children: Edward, Margaret, Beatrice, Edmund, and Catherine. He was known for his love of tournaments and other forms of chivalry. Henry was a skilled horseman and jouster, and he frequently participated in tournaments and other knightly games. Henry was a patron of the arts and literature, and he is known to have owned a large collection of books. He was also an avid supporter of troubadours and minstrels, and he frequently hosted musical and literary events at court. He was also a keen collector of exotic animals, including a polar bear and an elephant. These animals were considered a sign of wealth and status in medieval Europe, and they were often displayed in royal menageries such as the Tower of London. Henry faced financial difficulties throughout his reign, and he was forced to borrow money from Italian bankers such as the Frescobaldi and Bardi families. These loans put a strain on the kingdom's economy and contributed to inflation and other economic problems. Henry was criticized for his excessive spending on building projects and other extravagances. Henry's love of architecture and his desire to beautify his kingdom led him to undertake many ambitious building projects, including the rebuilding of Westminster Abbey, the creation of a new palace at Westminster, modifications of the Tower of London and Windsor Castle, and the construction of numerous castles and fortifications throughout the country. These projects required significant amounts of money, and Henry often struggled to pay for them. He was also criticized for his personal spending habits, which included lavish feasts, extravagant clothing, and other luxuries. Henry faced opposition from the barons and other nobles who resented his spending and his attempts to increase his own power. In 1258, a group of barons led by Simon de Montfort forced Henry to accept the provisions of Oxford, a set of reforms that limited the power of the king and gave more authority to the barons. This led to a period of tense relations between the king and the nobility, and it set the stage for the conflict between Henry and de Montfort that would come later. Henry passed the Statute of Jewry in 1253, which attempted to stop the building of synagogues and force Jews to wear badges on their clothes. It is unclear as to how far Henry enforced this statute. Just as Louis of France, Jewish leaders were imprisoned and forced to pay huge fines on their money-lending activities. This in turn forced the Jews to force the repayment of their loans to the barons and knights, which in turn fueled anti-Jewish resentment. In addition to his domestic troubles, Henry faced challenges on the international stage. He was involved in a long-running conflict with France over control of Gascony, an English possession in southwestern France. The conflict was marked by a series of wars and truces, but it ultimately ended in a French victory in 1259. Henry's reign saw significant changes in the legal and administrative systems of England. He was responsible for the creation of the Court of Common Pleas, which handled civil cases, and the Court of King's Bench, which handled criminal cases. He also established the office of the Chancellor, who served as the King's chief advisor and oversaw the administration of justice. These changes helped to establish a more efficient and centralized system of government in England. Henry died on November 16, 1272, at the age of 65. He had ruled England for 56 years, making him one of the longest reigning monarchs in English history. He was succeeded by his son, Edward I, who would go on to become one of the most powerful and influential monarchs of the Middle Ages. Despite his many challenges and controversies, Henry is remembered as a cultured and pious king who helped to shape the political and cultural landscape of medieval England.